Okay, so what are the forensic applications of DNA testing? Well, first of all, to assist criminal investigation. This is a rape homicide case of a young girl. She was 16 years old. And to silence her, she was killed by the perpetrator. But DNA found in her body actually matched that of the suspect, identified through eyewitness testimony. But the DNA test was a crucial piece of evidence in the conviction. Paternity testing, we've already discussed that. This is very important application. And in the disaster victim ID, if you remember, this is Typhoon Frank, the Princess of the Stars had capsized, and there were over 800 bodies, where 800 people supposedly were inside the ship. And of course, child trafficking for identification. And essentially here, this is one of the main messages that I'd like you to take away from this talk, would be that DNA is useful, is one of the most powerful tools for identification. How we use that tool will be something for our partners to realize, to understand. But really our strength is to help in the identification process, which in many investigations is the first step. For example, we're involved in one crime now, and if we identify the body, it can lead to further investigation, because if it is not, then no body, no crime. End of story. So really the identification is a major issue in a lot of these cases. So this just summarizes forensic investigation. So when there's a crime scene investigation, usually, and I hope it doesn't stop only in here, and in many cases in the Philippines it does, is a collection of testimonial evidence. We hope that eventually, or at least now it's happening, collection and preservation of physical evidence, and then it's taken to the appropriate laboratory for analysis. When I say appropriate laboratory for analysis, this may be chemical analysis, toxicological analysis. It doesn't necessarily have to be only DNA, but at least more evidences have to be analyzed and properly interpreted. The DNA results, or the results of the laboratory tests, are then submitted to court, and then the court appreciates the evidence and then convicts the right perpetrator. Okay, so the significance of DNA testing, it accelerates investigations. For example, in many of our cases, in terms of paternity cases, we do 10 to 14 working days. Actually, we can do the test in 2 days. But because we review all of the equipment log sheets, the results, etc., we release results within 10 to 14 working days. So it accelerates. And in many instances, we feel and we believe that we've declogged family courts, because we hear them already in our offices. Pare, you provide child support, it's 99.9975 eh. So we hear them and we leave them to themselves, but they already agree on their terms of agreement. And we think that these are already releasing the court away from one or two cases. So it really is helping. Identify the perpetrator and exclude the innocent. So we've helped the Child Protection Unit of Dr. Bernadette Madrid, as well as we've started the Innocence Project Philippines Network to try to assist the cases of the Free Legal Assistance Group, those situations where the accused or the defendants, the convicted individuals, are still claiming that they have been wrongfully convicted. So it works both ways. To assist the justice system with the prompt resolution of cases, in many instances, I've testified, and this is now our track record. I've testified, I submit my judicial affidavit, and I get cross-examined once, and that's it, I'm done. This is a far cry from 5-7 years ago when I have to appear in court 3 or 4 times. Now it's a one sit, one out, and we're done. Knowledge of the gravity of the crime, as I gave an example, in some cases, if the person who has possession of the child is not related to the child, then not just the sale of the child is an issue, but also kidnapping has been added to the charges. Okay, let's talk about the utility of DNA in investigation of child trafficking cases. You know, we can answer questions of relationships. If you start thinking, how can I use DNA in my cases? We can answer questions of relationships by really understanding what legal guardianship is. If the child is going for adoption, as we discussed this earlier, is the woman or the man giving the child up for adoption really the legal guardian of the child? Or is there a sale on the side and just up for adoption, theoretically by a mother? In terms of organ donation, we've had a lot of discussions with Dr. Benita. Organ donation, because there are some institutes in the Philippines that are making use of organ sales as part of the transplant issue. In fact, Amihan encountered one case, but we weren't able to catch it on time, where the donor was a minor. And really the repercussion of getting, Dr. Padilla is the best person to talk about this, but we've got 2 kidneys. The fact that we've got 2 kidneys, there must be a reason for that. The loss of a kidney, whether artificial or natural, is a big loss in terms of our body. It's a backup. You lose one, you don't clean your body. And so if there is an illegal sale of a kidney or artificial take of a kidney from our bodies at a very young age, the repercussion on the young person's health life will be quite big. Yeah, more serious. And if that person also loses the function, if the single kidney loses its function, then it will be also something that the government will have to cover, because of course there's no more money there. Also, in terms of migration, one of the discussions I had also is with other partner groups of child and women advocacy groups, the issue of finding halimbawa a woman or a person in the ports, in both ports. This is with Visayan Forum. They were saying that many times in their investigations, they see the same woman every 3 or 2 months with all her nieces in the ports. And then the nieces, when asked, they would say, she's our auntie, but they don't talk to each other. So these are just observations that they've got. And when I was talking to the police about this, well, why can't you request for DNA testing? We can test those, and if they're really her nieces, then let them be. But if they are not her nieces, then why is she with them? So those are things that we can evaluate to confirm or negate claims of legal guardianship. We can do relationships of father, mother, child. We can do grandfather, grandmother, children, aunties, uncles, maternal relationships. You know that one of our DNA, one type of our DNA, we can trace your matrilineal lineage, your maternal line. In other words, that DNA we inherit solely from our mother. And so we can trace your brother would have an identical, what we call mitochondrial DNA with you, your other brothers, etc., and even your half-sister if you have the same mother. We can also trace your relationship to your maternal cousin if your mother is the sister of her mother. And so we can have an extended line. In fact, now we're working on looking at the matrilineal lineage of our national hero, Jose Rizal, who has 7 sisters. And that's about 3 generations of maternal descendants that we are seeing exactly the same maternal DNA. That's very powerful. And that could be useful for tracing relationships with your own cases. In terms of the paternal line, we are also able to look at the male-specific DNA that the guys inherit only from their fathers. We women, we don't have what we call the Y chromosome. So only the dads, our sex chromosomes are X. So we've got 2 X chromosomes. The males have what they call an X chromosome and a Y chromosome. Very good, man. So a Y chromosome would then be passed on to his son, not to us, because we get his X. He's got an XY, he gives the X to us, then we are females. If he passes the Y, then the child becomes male. So now, the Y chromosome of a guy would be the same as his brother, as his half-brother, as his paternal brother, if they have the same, if they're half-brothers but the same father. Also his paternal cousins, his grandfather, paternal line, etc. So we've done some tracing of those as well. And we found them to be very, very, very effective. So we can do that in terms of legal guardianship issues. We've talked about sexual assault, so questions of relationships. We've done some cases where it involves criminal paternity. I talked about it earlier. If a victim says that she was actually raped by her father, we can evaluate that. And a good example of this, but we didn't do it at that time, was the case of Leo Echegaray. If you remember Leo Echegaray, in 1998, 1999, he was claiming that baby was not his daughter. And therefore he was sent, but baby said, he is my father. So he was sentenced to death because of the qualifying circumstance of relationship.
Even if he wasn't the father,
Would he be?
He would still have
convicted.
Yeah, because the point there is it was still incest because he was in the position of power of being the father. I mean, it's
Would he be-
complicated. If he and the mother of the child
Is
were
the father?
living together, yeah, so yun ang magiging kahit hindi siya yung father, but if he still exploited, abused the child, that would still be considered. It says like the stepfather, di ba? Meron pa rin,
Yes. Not biological.
yeah, but it would still be abuse of power.
There goes to be a qualifying. Yeah, can I ask
Would that be, I mean, I don't know the whole case, but would that be, he was standing up as father, so that's the qualified circumstance. But the relationship,
Even if he wasn't the actual biological father. But of course, to prove that, if you had that evidence, if it was like sample of DNA found within the body of the child, it would still be abuse. It would still be rape.
oh, it would be, no, but yeah. So that
Ano pa rin yun?
Oral ascendance.
Moral
Moral
ascendance.
ascendance. Okay. So that is an issue for incest cases. In criminal, but she never did baby. No, she didn't have a baby.
No.
No. Okay. We've done some cases where again issues of pregnancy after the rape, and we were able to evaluate those.
Criminal paternity.
Criminal paternity. Also, we can answer questions of identity.
This one, yeah.
So this is very clear. We've discussed this crime scene samples, whether in rape from the body of the victim, prostitution, even when there are raids in videoke bars. I was saying, if there are raids there, grab where there's a blanket. I mean, we've got the blue light. You know, the blue light where you can actually using specific wavelength, you can see potential areas where semen had been left. And would allow us, blankets, bed sheets, etc. There are ways to do preliminary screens, we call them preliminary screens, in order to increase the possibility of locating places where we can cut the actual cloth and do the DNA tests. Even cigarettes, etc. Or even, and this I don't know how hard it is. You know, when there are videoke bar raids, I was informed that the girls, the children are separated from the guys. Tapos they go through a dental examination to try to get the age. I was asking, is it possible, and this, the child experts will have to address, is it possible to collect samples from them at this time? Not because they are guilty, but because they are potential victims. If we analyze those, and I don't know how difficult that, some of them would resist, of course, but if there are DNA profiles of those from their internal parts, there are male DNA, there are many male DNA, then you know that it's not just for singing here in this place. We're just having a good time. There's contact there. You've got 3 or 4. Particularly if the female is a minor, why is she there in the first place? So there are, I mean, it kind of gives the investigators more way to investigate further.
Actually, it could be done if it's handled well, but the check-up, because when a child is rescued, the child should undergo a thorough medical check-up. But then you have to explain well to the child, well, we're doing this to make sure that you're okay, that you don't have any illnesses, and then you can get a swab.
Yeah, but it's not that easy after the rape because children are they resist. No, they don't want to be put under another situation where they will be inspected of their body and all that, and taken of samples from their original area. It's difficult, it takes quite a while before they consider that, and even the idea of putting them in a place where they will be, asked questions and medical examinations, it's not that easy. Hindi ganun kadali sa mga
Is it
even
standard
children
procedure
that
for the age?
No, it's not being done. But the problem is we're losing cases.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're so
It's not
dependent on the child's verbal testimony. Well, the body can present us with so much more evidence. But the problem there is we have enough, good caseworkers who can work quickly with the kids and convince the kids.
Right.
You just do a thorough medical test on you, and then just to make sure that everything's okay, that you're not sick. We can heal, we can find the right. You say it in such a way that.
Kasi yung iba din doon, baka may STD.
Yun na, STD.
Yeah.
Kaya nga, that's precisely why you need to have a thorough medical check-up once you rescue the girls. Because you need to know what has to be done. Kasi yun ang problema natin, maraming crime scene samples nawawala, lalo na sa rape kasi they feel so dirty, they keep on taking a bath. So, wala na yung...
They wash.
And they don't want to be placed in a shelter or in a place where they don't want that.
Yeah.
Right after the rescue or the rape, they don't want to be placed in a safe place. They don't understand it, They just don't want to parang.
So we have to look around how we're going to handle
But
this.
I have a question on the consent part of
consent.
getting the
Yes, isa pa yan.
DNA. I mean, kasi bata eh. So, how do we...
That's something that maybe you need to ask Dr. Madrid.
Yeah.
Dr. Madrid and his
Because
team.
No, kasi if it's a criminal case, diba, technically the social worker can be ano yung
Kasi they're involved already in a rape.
Loco parentis.
Yeah, we are.
So you don't have to wait for the parent.
Okay.
Kasi yung under RA 7610, the social worker can be immediately take
Custody of the
parental
child.
custody of the child.
And anything they do or
But you've got to make it clear,
Yeah.
because some of the social workers, when we were dealing with the social,
Don't
they
want to
don't want to kasi
waste
they
money.
people
they
have
will
filed
testify.
case. No. Because they have been sued for I mean not particularly for this, for whatever other things that they've done.
Yeah.
Which so when I was giving some lectures to the SWD, we made it very clear what you can testify on is really just the scope of what you did, which is talk to them, collected the samples. If they ask anything about DNA, you get them to call me. I'm the expert. I mean, I'm the one to testify on that. You have no need to understand the whole lot. So even in the training, even with Dr. Madrid's team, we keep on telling, don't be fearful. Don't try to cross over beyond your expertise. You saw, you collected, you did this, you signed, then you transferred custody to the next person. Therefore, no more.
Yeah. I have experience testifying in court, and when they asked me, do you believe in what the child says? And I said, yes. Why? Have you been in the crime and have you seen the actual crime? No. And then it's good the judge was very kind and said, counsel, the social worker will testify that what the child has disclosed to her, it's not for her to do. It's the court that will rule.
It's true.
So sometimes we're put also on the spot, trying to take things out from our all other informations. For example, we were asked to sign if the medical legal examination to be conducted on child, and we were there inside the medical examination room. And then we were asked, what did you do there? And the child is being conducted on police. What did you tell him? So, medyo mahirap din talaga. Kasi kami nakapronta, di ba? So, ano yung ginawa? Ano sinagot? Ano ang tinanong? Ano sinabi ng bata? Medyo may kahirapan din, Hindi nakasama sa ano.
No, I understand. I guess and this was what the discussion I had with some of the other lawyers. And again, this is the other end of the spectrum. There's such a thing as good lawyering and there's bad lawyering. And unfortunately, we've got some really bad lawyers. So one thing that I think to contradict or to counter, sorry, to counter there is we really need to train our people. We need to train our people. Plus, we need to get people off our own, the good lawyers, that this is beyond. I mean, this is.
You should probably have trainings for
That's what I'm saying.
social workers on
Yes.
what you're allowed,
What you're-
what's within your scope to
Exactly.
talk
Yeah,
about,
and what you
what are the
Testifying
things
for-
you
that
can just say I don't need.
Or I don't know. I don't know.
I
It's
don't
beyond
know
my
that.
expertise.
Yeah.
The other thing she asked me is, what did you do after the child disclosed to you? I said, I referred her to CPU, etc., etc. And that ended the story. And then the next time, they called on the person from the
other
CPU
one. Yes.
to testify also.
Yes.
So they cut off stories.
And actually, one thing that we found even in our experience is that for every case that we've done, we've testified, we've got a very, and this I tell all my staff, is we write a narrative of what the case was. So that when you get cross-examined, you remember even if the cross-examination was 6 months ago or 2 years ago. Then you remember you still remember.
Yeah,
Because you need to go back to your
You have to have
records.
some
You have to have some notes.
documentation.
Because you would, that frightens you before going when you don't.
That's our standard in Canada. We are trained to document what
What comes out.
was told to us, and then the next step if you refer. And there is already a protocol when you get this kind of disclosure. Sometimes you also have to stop. You have to stop the child and say, I need to call someone. Otherwise, if you stay with it,
They will
they
kill
will
you.
question.
Why?
You are not an expert in that kind
Field.
of handling that disclosure, so that really is left to a trained social worker. I'm a counselor, so I have to stop. And also, we can be accused of coaching the child to say, or giving the child words.
What to say?
Yeah. So that's why you have to be very,
Careful.
you have to train, because you can lose the case based on that.
A question
Yes, ma'am.
regarding collection of the evidence, because that's very crucial, especially in crime scenes. So the one who collects the evidence, doesn't the police also?
Well,
do
it's
that?
the
How is
scene of the
dialogue?
crime officers.
Yeah.
You know,
So
one thing that's a
cool.
big challenge to us, you know. Well, no. When I was reviewing the laws for the chapter we're writing, the police and the NPI, they do not have a very clear demarcation line as to who does what.
Yeah, that's right.
So scene of the crime officers, but sometimes in NBA investigators there, etc. And then they've got their own institutions. So they are the ones mandated to collect the samples. Whether they know how to do it or not is a different question. So there's really a push to actually train them to
That's
do that,
true.
to do this. And I guess there's a lot there needs to be, but I also feel for them for when the OSCS asked us to train some of the police officers, even in Leyte, in summer, etc. This was before Hayat. Some of the people we talked to, after finished training them, they would say, can we keep your cotton buds? Their monthly budget was 3,000 pesos
Yeah.
for the entire office.
Mm.
So expect them to
The
do,
gloves.
they don't want to change gloves because they don't have gloves anymore. That's what they go, Mom, we just wash this already. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
So, and then of course, even in two of our cases, that we were trying to get for post-conviction DNA testing, we couldn't because the slides
Yeah.
were actually, I don't know if you've heard this,
Yes.
were washed.
Yes.
So routine in that particular hospital was after they've looked under the microscope, if there were sperms, they wash this and reuse
Use it
it.
again.
How can you open the case for post-conviction? You cannot. So, and it didn't happen only once, we saw two. I thought this was just one. No, we saw two cases.
Yeah, actually, that's really a problem because when I was in UNICEF before, Dr. Madrid and his team also was helping us train the police officers for child abuse investigation. And really, I mean, collection of evidence was really so much a problem because we had a practicum, we had like a crime scene where they will practice what they have learned, and grabe talaga.
I guess it's also it's really a leadership thing because even when you look and when you screen, the PNP has one of the lowest entry points in terms of who can become a police officer. I had to write to Bernie, can you get somebody to allow one of my students in? She was a molecular bio student wanting to work in the police because she wanted to do good things. But she wasn't allowed in because she was 5'2". She was too short. They can skip everything except the height.
But they basically, you know, cerebral and
Yeah, it's like
I think they had the minimum requirement was 5'3" or something. She was 5'2" or 5'1".
sometimes what you call what they say, sometimes a bit brainless. She's
Criteria.
going to work in the lab, not fight crime with a gun or something where you maybe hide could be.
So I think these are challenges that we realize to a certain extent with the police officers also. And one of the things that we've noticed is that really there's the thing of the chain of command.
Yeah.
So what the bosses, they have no way to question. There is really no scope for that, to question. And so it makes it very difficult, you know, when we try. Although we've got some of our the DNA people that we've been working with, you can see that there are efforts there, but they can only exert so much.
Yes, sometimes you have trained people, but they don't have the chemicals. That's the problem with the laboratory a lot of times.
preservation.
That's why
as well.
Yeah.
So really what we think should be done, and I really would want to partner with a lot of people here, is to really have ways to support them. I mean, they always hear, and then it's sad for them also to be always being criticized, but we don't understand so much what they're going through. So, for example, yun nga, sinasabi nila, they're being criticized for not doing hayan, but we don't have any funding to buy the chemicals. So I said, but you're getting salaried for 2 years. What are you guys doing? So government is paying for them to be employed. They don't have chemicals. So what are you
Not
doing?
doing anything.
Oh, we have to go to the chemical lab, then we have to go to the other lab, then we have to go. So there's really no focus on what they can do because they can't do anything, but they want to do it. So when I invited them to be in my lab the beginning of this year, they were more than happy to come because they were really excited. They were there at 7 o'clock, I arrived at 8 o'clock. They were already geared. What do we do? What do we do? So there's real intention of wanting to do. We have not provided
The
that.
lack of resources.